Okay, well, welcome you guys. It's the month of September 2018, and this is the patron-only video call. Welcome, everybody. I see a lot of new faces, and it's been kind of an exciting month for me because I've been, pushing Phobos, and people have been getting on Patreon, and I'm about ready to print and ship the books, and so it's kind of like an exciting new way of using Patreon for me. And I don't know. I can't wait for you guys to get the books and hear your response to it. And if you like getting comics this way, I guess, but we don't need to talk about that because that's irrelevant. I want to ask you guys to steer the conversation. So whatever you want to talk about, I'm all game for it. So I will answer anything that I can. So whoever jumps at it first can start. Anyone? I'm going to start calling you out.
So what was the decision to use like the manga style or the manga size for the Phobos?
Oh yeah, interesting. Well, I like the feeling of manga. Like I have this is the Fooly Cooly book here, and there was always something inspiring about the simplicity of this. And I've noticed at conventions and stuff that a lot of people will pick up my smaller books before they pick up my bigger books. And so that's not necessarily the driving factor behind it, but it's kind of a combination of different books that I've gotten over the years. Like here's a Scott Pilgrim color book. It's just a really nice size, it's not too big. And so I've started to kind of get this idea in my mind of what I want each book to feel like as I'm developing it. And for whatever reason, Phobos just felt like it would be nicer as a real, once I get a lot of issues done, a nice thick hardcover that's kind of a smaller, more like a Harry Potter book size or a manga book size. And so that's just like the feel that I really wanted it to have when it's like sitting there on a table or on the bookshelf. And so that, just as much as art, really drives how I build the project, I think, is like what I want it to feel like in my hands, And so I was debating which print on demand service to use for the little floppies. So this is one I printed before I finished all the pages because I just wanted to see if the graininess, you can't really tell, but I wanted to see if the graininess printed, because I don't know how it's going to work, especially on an offset printer, but it seemed like it worked. So I tested the little manga size, and it just felt right. It was like the text was the right size and all that stuff. And so, once I made that little test printing, it kind of worked. It felt like, this works, So I don't know what to say other than it's like a feeling. It's like what I want the mood and the feeling of the book to be. And that just drives so much of it, Whereas like Sithra and Remind, I wanted it to be like Frank Miller's Ronin or whatever, like that feeling that I got when I was a kid that I got that book, or whatever book it might be. There was a lot of them back in the day. So that's really it. I know it's not really a scientific answer. It's more like an emotional answer, but it really drives a lot of what I do, because I feel like if my book can give that kind of feeling to somebody when they first see it or pick it up, then it's accomplishing what the feeling. It's accomplishing part of that feeling that I want the whole package to be. Also, when you read it and you see each page, that they need to make people feel something. If it doesn't cause any sort of reaction, then I think I failed. So that's it. Anyone else? Oh, you're muted.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, are you trying to say more? Nope, guess not. I see Nick joined us. Welcome, Nick. How many do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. Well, at this point, Matt, if you're not going to be able to be a part of the chat, maybe I'll ask you to jump out. You can watch it on live stream though, because I don't want to keep anyone who wants to actually talk from jumping in. So,
how do you talk?
How do you talk? I heard you talk. Who's that?
This is Gary.
Gary, welcome, Gary. Well, if you want to say something,
I don't know how that works.
Please. Thanks, Matt, for leaving. I'm sorry to kick you out, buddy. So, Gary, you started talking, so I think it's your turn to ask something or to steer the conversation. How about
that? Who are you printing through this time?
It's Kablam. It's just the print-on-demand service for comics. It's a real simple service, and that's why I like it. It's just there's no bells and whistles. It just do comics and sometimes it's hit and miss. Like some of the comics I've printed have just been beautiful, and they look so perfect, and they look exactly like you would at an offset printer. And then sometimes it's just like you can tell they have a couple different machines that they run it on, depending on the quantity and stuff. And so I'm hoping that with a bigger quantity, I will be able to get a really nice quality. I'll request that they put it on the nice machine, whatever that might be. Yeah. But I've had good luck with them. I was trying to also make a test printing with Amazon's company called CreateSpace, which I've used before. And I like the way their books turn out. I think ideally that would have been the way I wanted it to look. They don't have the manga size, but I couldn't. It's so hard to get things through their automated approval process unless you just have a book with text. And I worked at it for a while, and they would just send me this generic, nope, it doesn't fit the specifications, or there's problems. And it's because I'm printing text that sometimes goes up to the edge of the page, and they just kick it out of the system without allowing you to explain the reason why you want it that way. And so for graphic novels, I found it's a little difficult, unless you have like a nice big white border around every panel or around every page. And also, what happened with my last book through them, which was the Kickstarter handbook, is you submit your files for like a cover, and then they say it's incorrect. It needs to, the spine width needs to have the font a little smaller so it doesn't bend around the edge. And I'm like, I don't care. I want it to, if it has to bend around the edge, who cares? But they don't want it that way, so they have these specifications. And so I change it, and then it goes through another automated procedure, but then I can tell someone has manipulated it as well. And so they approve it, but they've manipulated it. And so now I'm stuck with this problem of, do I change it based on how they manipulated it or based on my originals that I sent them? And so but there's no communication. And so it makes it frustrating, and that takes a week between each back and forth. So after the first time they kicked it out of the system for this test book, I was just like, you know what? Kablam just did it. It's a little more expensive with them, but I'm happy with it, and I've been happy with their past books too. So anyway, that was a long answer, but that's it.
So sorry for my English at first.
No problem.
Do you usually work on several projects, Cithra and Phobos at the same time, or do you do one work and then another work?
Mainly, I just try to get one book done at a time, and I found myself this year in kind of a little bit more turbulent position where I'm in between projects, and so I kind of devoted most of this year to small projects. And so I worked on a little book called Scribbles for patrons several months ago. I started working on a little children's book I was working on. I did some teaching and random things there's another comic that I really want to give to you guys that it just hasn't been released yet, that a company paid me to do. But this is an interesting year, and I usually don't like doing the dabbling in the little things, but I just felt like it was a good time to just kind of clean house and get all these little ideas done in between big projects, because once I get focused on a big project, it's really hard for me to think about other things, because there's so many facets to making a big project. And so what you might be noticing is on YouTube, I'm posting live streams of Cithra, working on Cithra and Phobos. The thing about those Cithra live streams is those are from about 2 years ago. I did a lot of live streaming for the 4th book, and I just never did anything with it. I had plans to do something with it, but then it just became too much, too much work to keep up with Cithra, the schedule. And so since then, I've finished Cithra. I've finished 6 books. They're not all printed yet, but the 4th one's about ready to come out, and that's kind of why I'm promoting that stuff, to kind of promote the book, get people thinking about it again. And next year in February, I'll launch the campaign for books 5 and 6 of Cithra, and that will finish that whole thing. But they're done, and so it means I have a lot of time to try to figure out what's the next thing. And so, like I said, this year was a lot of little things, because I didn't want to just jump from one big project to another. It'd be like taking a giant long journey and then being like, all right, the next journey is here. As soon as I get home, I'm packing my bags. And I just didn't want to, I wasn't ready for it, But now that I've decided to work on Phobos, it's kind of the main thing on my plate. And I'm kind of kicking a lot of those small ideas to the side again. And the way I organize it is I always allow myself to have small ideas, and I might attach them to a project, but then I just put them away in a filing cabinet. So if I'm inspired by something, I'll maybe write it down and just put it away. But the main focus right now is Phobos. Even though you see me printing other things, it's just because different things with Webtoons, the contracts with Cithra, I couldn't print things until a certain amount of time, and so it's just juggling all those facets of it. But yeah, as far as a creative work, I really have to stick to one at a time. It's really hard for me not to do that. And sometimes I jump onto something else in the middle of a big project, and it's because I'm exhausted from that big project and I just want to break from it. But it doesn't mean I can spend half the day working on another project and then jump back onto the big project. My brain doesn't work that way very good. And it means, like, usually I'll spend a month working on the other project, and then I'll jump back into the main project, So that's me, though. I know other artists can jump all over the place. Some can. But I can't. I need like extreme focus for whatever reason. Also it's a speed thing, like I want to do the things that makes me really move fast. And if I'm really focused, I can just crank through stuff. And if I'm jumping all around like freelance type work, which I've done that before in freelance, it feels like everything slows down, because your brain can't just, you have to ramp up with everything you start and stop. It might be a little ramp up. It might be an hour ramp up, but I still have to ramp up, So let's see. I see some comments in the questions. You can keep asking questions if you want. I see some new faces too. I'm gonna start calling you guys out if no one says anything.
Okay, so how you've switched to Patreon over Kickstarter? How have you found how they interact with each other? Which one you prefer?
Oh, I love Kickstarter, and I think that's the reason I've started treating Patreon kind of like Kickstarter. This idea was given to me to actually give someone a physical object, maybe once a year or twice a year. And in my case, I'm going to try to do it every quarter. And And it's kind of really trying to bridge the gap between Kickstarter and Patreon. Hold on one second. I'm going to mute someone. Hey, Curtis, I just muted you, so I heard a little background noise. Unmute yourself whenever you want to jump in. But Kickstarter was really successful for me. And I think it's just the way it just worked with the way I work, really well. And Patreon I always had trouble with, but I liked the idea and the concept of it. And it was really an exciting thing when it started. I think I joined it in 2014 when it pretty close to the first year it started. And it increased a lot, but then once it started leveling out once I left DreamWorks. Well, no, it was after that. It started going up once I left DreamWorks because people were like, woohoo, you're doing something on your own. And so they wanted to support it. But then once I signed up with Webtoons to do Sithra, it really kind of went down and sideways, as you probably have seen in one of my videos where I explain about it. And so I was just really kind of stuck with it for a couple of years going, how do I make this work? I don't know how to give them the right amount of time to people on Patreon to make it worth it to them. And what I really like doing is giving people what I want. And what I want is physical books. I want hardcover books. I'm not as much of an online reader myself. Hey there.
Hey.
Jay. How you doing? And so I'm not as much of an online reader. And so, I just want books. And so I don't know why patrons are giving me money, but if they want to support me, they can, so I always looked at them as the silent majority. But, and it was hard to communicate with them because a lot of them, a lot of you guys, maybe not you guys, but most of the patrons would not look at any updates I gave them. And so I just felt like I don't know what they want, And then when I talked to a guy on a podcast, he said the way he makes Patreon work is by giving people something physical once in a while, and like having a little pledge drive type thing, like Kickstarter. And so it just really kind of got the gears working in my head, and I was like, you know what, I could use this as a reason to do a short comic and experiment with this. I don't want to just give people a postcard or something like that, because that's not what I would want. And so that's when I did the Scribbles comic. And it worked really well. It like doubled the patronage. And so then it made me realize, okay, it's kind of bridging this gap between Kickstarter and Patreon that gets people excited. Like just like on Kickstarter, they're getting the physical product. Maybe I could bring that to Patreon somehow. And I wouldn't be able to do a hardcover book on Patreon, but I can do something simple, something like a comic that doesn't cost me too much, and make it very exclusive. And so thinking of it that way has really, I think it's kind of been the thing that I've found that's worked for me. And since then, patrons announced this thing called special feature, because I guess they saw a couple other people doing this. And so they made this new feature. It's in beta right now, but it's called, you can make your Patreon account have a special feature for a limited time. And so if you see it on my Patreon account, you can see it. It has a little lightning flash. And so they actually put me into this little beta group to experiment with this idea of using a special feature reward. And I was doing it anyway, and so it just fit perfectly with what I'm doing. So I don't know. I think Patreon's kind of pushing that way too. Like, let's try to bridge the gap between Kickstarter and Patreon a little bit more by giving people a way to give a physical object as a reward or incentive once a year, twice a year, or 4 times a year is kind of what they suggest. So there's that side of it. The other side of it is, how does it work with my Kickstarter stuff? It seems to me like it doesn't do anything negative towards Kickstarter. So if I increase a Patreon account and grow this audience on Patreon, which is really ideal for me because it pays, if I get it up to a certain amount, it pays the salary, whereas Kickstarter pays for a product. Sorry, I'm skipping around. I haven't seen any problems growing a Patreon and doing a Kickstarter at the same time, because I think it's two different things, and I'm keeping the patrons or the Kickstarter campaigns to like these really big, nice hardcover books. And so they're a higher buy-in price, $25 or more. My next Kickstarter is probably going to be, the lowest here will probably be $50 because I'm going to be selling two books, two $25 hardcover books to just complete the series. I figure no one's going to buy the 5th book and not the 6th book. Why would they do that? You know, because they've already tested the series out. If at this point they only want the 5th book, then I guess they can just wait till they get it in the store. So anyway, we'll see how this next Kickstarter goes. But so far it's worked really nicely hand in hand with Patreon. That was a big worry, I think, when Patreon started, is if you grow your Patreon account, people won't back you on Kickstarter. But I haven't seen that to be the case. Now, if you're doing the exact same thing on Kickstarter and Patreon, then I could see that conflicting. But my Kickstarter stuff is very specific and my Patreon stuff is very specific, you know. All right, anyone else? Or you want to add to that?
How long are you going to be working on the first volume of Phobos?
Well, what I have right now is it's done.
Oh.
I'm trying to release it in little shorter chunks online. I apologize for not putting anything up on the website for patrons yet. I'm going to do it before the end of the month, the next chunk of pages. And then the last chunk of maybe 30 or 40 pages I'll put up in October. And I was really hoping to get this book into your hands before that last chunk went live online. But I don't think that's going to happen just because of the time, how long it takes to print stuff, you know. And so I've already started working on the second book. And I consider these issues because really what I want to do with this is make a 300-page volumes that are hardcover. And that's in my mind like the ideal like little book for Phobos that I want to sell in bookstores. Like these I won't sell in bookstores. These are just going to be patron-only exclusives. And I'll print them once and then that'll be it, you know. And even the next campaign that I have for the second volume, I don't think I'm going to offer volume 1 in that, or book 1 in that, because I really don't want it to be a thing that I keep reprinting at all. You know, I just want it to be a one-shot. And if you're here, you get it. If you're not here, you don't, you know. And so yeah, 300-page chunks for the volumes, and I have probably about 10 volumes written, like kind of loosely written. So it's a really ridiculously, it can go on forever, really, the way I'm writing it. I don't know if it will. It kind of depends on the reaction to how people react to it when I do the Kickstarter and get it out into stores. If people react better to Phobos than my other work, then I'll probably keep writing it in a way that it can continue more. You know, there's definitely story arcs, but there can be longer arcs if I want, and there could be multiple story arcs if I want as well, just because of how I've set up the characters. And you know, it's like one of those things where it's like, I've been messing with these characters for a long time, so I don't really ever see it being something that just dies and is done. Like if I'm 80 and I want to do another Phobos, I want to have that option, you know. But if it doesn't really connect with people, then I want to be able to wrap it up in a couple volumes and be happy with the arc, you know, because I do have other stories I want to tell too. So that's kind of my thought with it. Like, I'll do this first volume, which would be 3 issues, put it on Kickstarter, probably early next year, maybe, if I can get it all done in that time. And then see the reaction, see how people respond, and if it's comparatively to my other work, and then make a decision at that point if I'm going to keep plugging away at it. You know, but I don't want to ever leave it in a place to where it's unresolved either. I don't want to have it be a ramp up in the story and then it just stops and sorry guys, you didn't like it enough. You know, I don't want to do that to anyone. I do want to wrap up at least an arc, you know? So that's the plan. It's kind of loose, but it's still kind of where I'm going. And if every time I do a patron drive for the next book, the patronage increases, then it really makes it worth it for me, because that means I'm not scrambling to try to figure out how to make a Kickstarter work to pay my bills for a long period of time, mixed with if I should do freelance and all these other things that you juggle kind of. It just brings an unnecessary stress to the picture, to the story. And then the story becomes unfulfilling for me to work on, you know, and I don't want to trap myself into that. And so that's why I've been hesitant to start the next thing until I see something proving to work financially, you know? And so anyway, that's kind of where we're at. It's kind of a, you know, logistic, financial, and passionate with the story idea all mixed together. How do you combine those all? You know?
Jason, can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, okay. I have a hackneyed idea that's probably, anyways, I'll just say it. Doug Tenapel, I saw he's making a video game of that Bigfoot Bill stuff. And I was thinking, like, your characters in your world seem like it would make a great, like, kooky video game for Phobos. I mean, I know that's, like, crazy and extremely expensive and everything, but yeah. I was just thinking, you know, it seems like it would really fit with a video game.
You know, I talked to Doug about this, actually, because I was like, why are you making a video game? Like, why are you doing this? And because I don't remember what conversation it was. It might have been one of his streams, or it might have been one of mine. I don't remember. But he said, and it really made sense in his case. He's the creator of Earthworm Jim, and he has a big video game history. He's actually, you know, done several video games. And so he has a big audience that's probably bigger than his graphic novel audience that's into his video games stuff. And he says a lot of his video game people don't even know he makes graphic novels. So with his audience, it makes sense to say, from the creative Earthworm Jim, here comes Bigfoot Bill for the video game. And you have a built-in audience, like, eager and waiting, you know? Me, on the other hand, I've never done anything in video games. And so it would really be a secondary product. It would be like me making plushies, which does not help my profit and loss. You know what I'm saying? With the amount of time invested in me doing it, it doesn't help until I get, you know, unless someone else can do it for me and it can make sense and there's a big enough audience, it doesn't work. And so a video game for me, which I've entertained the idea. I've thought about doing something for the iPad when that craze started with, like, Remind, you know, trying to make a Remind video game, and talked to some people about it, you know, that were interested. And then I just realized this is not my thing. You know, I didn't fall in love with Remind because of a video game. You know what I'm saying? I didn't fall in love with comics because of video games either. And so I need to just kind of stay true to the thing that I do best, that my audience wants from me most, you know? Because every time I tiptoe into another territory, it always kind of slaps me in the face, because it's just that my audience wants graphic novels. They want stories. They want, you know, books that are beautifully crafted. And that's what I kind of pride myself in making. And so it'd be kind of, it wouldn't work like it would for Doug Tenapel, is kind of what I'm saying for me. Right. I would love to do it, but I think the audience would have to be like 50 times the size, you know, to justify it. You know, like, once you get so big, you can make those, you know, all the plushies and t-shirts and video games and stuff based on your property that you want. But as an independent, I'm doing all this myself. It just scatters my brain and my time and fractures everything way too much to where I'm not productive at the thing that I should be productive at.
Yeah.
So, but it's a great idea.
Yeah. No, am I muted still, or am I back still talking?
You're still talking. I can hear you.
Oh, yeah. I just thought, it's like it seemed like it would be like a crazy like Castlevania, like a really really screwed up Castlevania.
Oh, it'd be so fun.
It was
I just would love it.
I can see you don't have the audience.
Yeah.
I can see that, but
Yeah.
if you did
I
have
mean,
the audience, it'd be pretty cool.
Also, if a game publisher, like some people who made games that were really good at it and had a history, they approached me and said, we like this concept, we want to buy the rights to do a game or something, and we'll put our spin on it, like that would be great, because it's not writing on my audience, you know what I'm saying? It's writing on their audience and their expertise now. And that's a different story. That would be different than me hiring my own people to make a game, So that situation would be great. It'd be like if Mattel said, hey, we want to make a toy line out of your characters. I'm like, sure. Like you guys are the ones marketing it. You're pushing it into Walmart. Go ahead. It's definitely not because of the size of my audience, though. So they're not being tricked into thinking I'm going to promote it and make them millions of dollars, So that's the reality of it, though, I think. Anyone else got anything you want to?
Yeah. So on that same thread, where you've been in animation before, is there any idea of doing one of your things as an animated project, a movie or a series?
Yeah, I think that's a little closer to graspable, and it's not something I've necessarily tried pushing yet. And the way I look at it is, and I don't know if this is correct or not, but the way I look at it is I just want to build a library of intellectual property that and grow my audience at a nice, reasonable rate. And just keep putting out stuff, because the more you put out, especially in this really small world of graphic novels, producers and entertainment people are always looking. They're always watching. I get a lot of producer type people interested in seeing what I'm doing and what I'm doing next. And, it doesn't mean anything's happened, but they're always watching, because they're eagerly waiting for the next IP, because they're desperate for original content. And especially with stuff like Netflix and all the streaming services that are just pouring money into developing content. There's a lot of content needed. And so I feel like I'm in a better position long-term if I just focus on developing good content as fast as I can and not worry about selling off the rights to it just yet. Eventually, if something of mine hits and becomes really popular, then I'm going to have a big library of stuff that a bunch of producers and execs and networks can look through. You know what I'm saying? And it's going to be ripe for the plucking. And I'd love to negotiate with those kind of people, but I don't want to try to force it without having some leverage. And what I mean by leverage is like, if you're nobody, you're going to get the worst contract ever. And it's just the way it is. And I would rather have, a couple successful things under my belt before I really start pushing it more, And I could be wrong about that approach, because there's people like Doug who, are really successful with Hollywood, and they developed their content for that purpose. But every time I think that way, I'm not excited about my content anymore. If I try to tailor it to what would sell, then I suddenly am bored with it, because it's not what excites me, And so I don't want that to influence my work and what I'm doing, but I also I do want to make stuff that can translate to movies easily. And I've been approached by little companies wanting to do that. And I've thought about that a little bit before. Like, should I just have a little company do it? That might be the best option. Just getting something out there on like an Amazon streaming service based on a Remind or something. That'd be kind of neat, But I don't know. It's like it might just fracture my thoughts and my time too much to where I'm not focusing on the right thing, you know? And I think when I get older, like say I'm in my 60s, I would probably love to like sit back and auction off intellectual property or whatever, but or see rights, you know, see sales and money coming from selling rights or options and stuff. But right now I'm in a spot where I can actually produce quickly. And so I want to keep producing quickly as much as I can without that interfering with it. So many of my people I know, like once they get Hollywood knocking, they kind of stop making stuff because they get seduced into the Hollywood idea that all I got to do is pitch concepts and something will get big, you know? I'm so uninterested in that because I've seen that world for 20 years and I don't like the way that world works as far as Frankensteining together concepts and pitches and changing everything, you know, and putting someone else's name on it or whatever. Even if my name is still on something, to me, it's more like freelance. It's almost like I'm doing freelance to pitch ideas and to create them with a studio in mind and then go in and out of meetings and then tailor it to them and then work on it the way they want it. I don't want that. I get more excited when I see someone who wrote a book and then the rights are sold to DreamWorks. DreamWorks makes the thing based on the book, but it's their interpretation of it. And then the guy who wrote the book just gets credited and a nice paycheck, you know? So that's kind of what I'm trying to do long term. I'm just trying to make the intellectual property, keep making it, make it very graspable and not let it get tainted with other people's ideas of what it should be, you know? And as soon as you introduce Hollywood into it, it will get skewed because you're making it for the screen then, you know, which is just a different project, you know? This could really work in Hollywood. In fact, it's funny. This is the property that has actually almost got sold to options to when I made it as I mean, the version that I did in high school, I pitched it once and a producer started shopping it around and he almost had a company that almost was going to option it. And I was like, really? That one? That okay. And so it kind of, you know, it makes me realize there's something there, you know? So anyway, I think it could work and I definitely would love it to work, but I see it more as icing on the cake if something sells to Hollywood. But I want to make this work without Hollywood so that I can keep doing it and keep making stuff, you know? If it can work without Hollywood, then I'm doing something right. And then Hollywood should ideally come knocking, you know? It might be wishful thinking, but I just love making comics. You know, I love the comics. I love the books more than the movies. The movies are great though, you know, but, and it'll definitely get you a lot more attention, but, or a TV show or all that stuff. But, if I really wanted to do that, I would just become a screenwriter and pursue that dream that I had like 20 years ago where I wanted to be a director. That was my dream then, you know, and I would continue pursuing that if that's what I wanted. But I don't have that dream anymore, you know? So is that a good answer?
What about optioning it off to like a Japanese anime? I mean, it could become an anime, you know, you could get an anime version of your...
I mean, you know, again, if anybody approaches me about this stuff, I'd love to negotiate, you know? And I've had little things that I've optioned, like the German Remind version that was a cool experience, you know? And again, I do have smaller companies talking to me about wanting to do things, but nothing's just worth the time just yet, you know? Or not, or I'm in a sweet spot where I don't want to fracture my time too much. And I think that's really the important thing to me, is just not fracturing my time. Time's so limited, you know, it's so valuable. And it's like, if I'm going to be spending half of my time thinking about some other version of an old property, I don't know if it's worth it when I could, you know, when I can make this in 3 months, you know? So that's the way I look at it anyway.
So Jason.
Yes.
I was just curious how your experience went with finishing or did you finish the picture book, or did you have to stop, or? I'm just curious.
No, you know, I finished the sketches. So it's written now and sketched. And so it's kind of like, I got it out of my brain. I showed it to the publisher, the publisher who was the one who convinced me to make it. And since then, they said they don't do children's books anymore. So that's a different story. But I showed it to him regardless. And I was just like, here's what I got now. And suddenly he was interested in it again. And so, so I want to have a conversation with him. And if they're actually interested in writing a deal based on what I have, and putting some money down, I will stop things and work on it for a month and get it done, you know? But I think at this point, I need a little bit more, reason to stop things to work on it. And when I was working on it recently, the last time I worked on it, I was just kind of like losing interest because I didn't know what I would do with it, you know? And unless I have a vision for it, it's really hard for me to kind of continue it. And it's really good. I really, really like it. And I can see it working great in a children's book publishing company, like if they print it. I can see the thing selling a lot, but I don't know if I see myself doing a Kickstarter for it just yet, you know? And so it's that kind of a dilemma. It's like cognitive drawing. Like, do I want to keep working on this thing, or this thing, or this thing? And there's only so much time I can put into stuff, you know? And once I get it so far, it needs to kind of grow some legs and start walking a little bit before I can continue working on it.
Well, I know most people that are pitching picture books to publishers, they only do like 1 or 2 finished pages or spreads, and then the rest of their
That's what I understand too. And so I think it's at that phase, that stage where, okay, sorry, brain's locking up. It's at that stage where I can do that. I need to do a little bit of finishing touches onto some of the finished pages to really be happy with that. But I guess originally I was thinking I would finish it completely and then pitch it to these publishers so that it would blow their minds. But I don't think I want to put the time into it unless there's a reason. So I think what you're saying is probably more accurate, is that I just need to do that plan of sending it around to my friends who are in that world now instead of when it's done. And if things happen, if people get excited about it, then cool, you know, then that will excite me. If they don't, then I have plenty of stuff I can work on.
I love the children's book world. And I mean, that's kind of mostly what I was focusing on when I did school with art, that world, because none of my teachers knew anything about comics. So that was something I could talk to them about because they did it professionally. And I don't know, it's really hard. I don't think there's so far there's not a very good opportunity to do self-publish to that market. Yeah. You can, but it's not.
There are some outlier stories that I've heard, you know. Doug TenNapel interviewed N.T. Wilson, and look up that interview because N.T. Wilson self-published a children's book called something like Little Ninja or something, and he sold 1 million copies. And then they finally sold the rights to a printer. And it just kind of blew his mind. But so there are cases where it can work. It's just you can't assume it's going to.
Yeah.
And I do have some friends that are in that world and that are pretty good. Like John Clausen's like kind of the top of the pile. And I want to just show it to him. And I told him about it like a year or so ago. And I just want to throw it his way and say, do you think this would even work in the children's book world? Like, do you think a publisher would like this? Do you think your agent would like this? And just see. And if not, then it's okay, but, and then there's a couple other people I want to send it to that would
I'd love
get a
to
response.
finished spread you were coloring because it was really interesting. I was really interested with what you had been doing that one time when you live streamed it. So I'd love to see how you finished.
That's close. That's as far as I've gotten. I can send you I'll send you a PDF of it, and so you can actually read it too, and just tell me what you think. As long as you don't send it to anyone else.
Of course.
I sent it to Nick already. Sorry, Nick. I had to burden you with that. Let's see. Is there anyone in the comments saying anything? Man, I can't read very good these days. So I got these glasses because my eyes are getting bad, but only one of my eyes is bad. So I popped out one of the lenses, and it just makes it impossible for me to do. Like, it's just horrible. I look up and I seriously go cross-eyed. Anyway, but I don't use them too much yet. I need my eyes to get a little bit worse, and then I'll be forced to use them. Okay. Anything else you guys want to talk about? Where are we at? 10:17. We still got time. Yes.
I have a question.
Oh, yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey.
What's your name? What's your name?
Wendy.
Wendy. Okay. Very good. Hello, Wendy.
Hey.
Welcome.
Thanks. I have a question about thumbnails.
Okay.
Because I have trouble understanding, like, I know they're for obviously composition, but when you create your thumbnails, do you kind of have the general, like, what's going to happen on each page in mind as you're making them? Or is it completely just, I don't know, having trouble putting it into words, but you just kind of
cram as much information as you can?
Yeah, I guess that's what it, I don't know. I just, for some reason, have trouble understanding how to do that, like what the purpose is and everything.
What purpose? Okay. For me, the thumbnail, like I thumbnail in spreads, so I think in spreads, but I think most people would think in a page form. And I think it's a good idea to really get it, kind of have an idea of what you want to accomplish on a page, and it should probably be limited to one idea. At least in my case, that's what I try to do. And my panels are a lot more open, so there's a lot less panels crunched into a page than a lot of comics. Gotcha. And I like it that way because I look at it as like when you pause a movie, you can absorb the mood, and you're not absorbing multiple moods and multiple ideas. It's paused, and you are seeing what's in front of you. And so I look at a spread like the same way. You open up it's like it's about kind of getting 1 point across, or 1 point per page. Like this is, she looks up and this is the introduction of the Frankenstein character. So so when I'm doing my thumbnails, actually with Phobos, I've been just doing them on these little sticky notes.
Oh wow.
Just to keep me really focused on what it is that on a small size, I guess. And so I'll write little notes, and some of these are multiple ideas of the very same page. Here's that one where that I just released, where they're walking down the stairs, and there's the big drilling machine. So, and then I kind of refined it a little bit more. So, so it's really, it's just simply to kind of get the basic idea of that spread, on the paper. Because until I do that, it's really hard for me to kind of wrap my mind around it. You know, it's like writing the first draft of something. You know, you just got to get it out. And then once you get it out, you can say, oh yeah, let's organize it now, you know?
Right.
And let's correct the grammar, and let's make it understandable to other people who I don't have to explain it to, you know? And so for me, the thumbnails serve as a really, as that part, you know, it's like a storyboard for a movie, you know? The thumbnails are like the storyboards of a movie, you know, which I don't know if you know, but you know, you good movies, good directors, they usually storyboard everything, even if it's just stick figures, just to kind of get it all figured out, fleshed out, like make a blueprint visually, so that they can kind of see if it's the scenes are going to work together. So for me, that's what that is, and it really aids in my writing, because my writing is so simple as far as like what I actually write. I write bullet point lists practically, and so doing these thumbnails kind of really refine the angles, the scenery, like what does that drilling machine look like? I have no idea. In the script, it was like they're working on this big machine that drills, I guess. You know, it's like, okay, so a script writer would write a lot more probably, but me, my thumbnails is that writing. It's the shot angles. It's how the characters get introduced and how they talk to each other, and maybe an expression, you know. And sometimes it's all just about the composition and the scene and the mood and the feeling of it. And I'll just kind of let a couple pages happen that weren't even in the script because, oh, this would just make a really neat scene, you know, a really neat mood, and really set the tone a lot better. So, but I don't know that stuff until I start thumbnailing it, you know. And then once I thumbnail it, then I can start seeing it as a whole picture. I can lay all these thumbnails out. I can put them into Photoshop files and start seeing how they work together. And like maybe I have 30 pages for a scene, or maybe the next scene's only 5, and I'm like, I really didn't care that much about that scene. Maybe I need to figure out something that makes it a little more interesting, you know. So I'll add some more to it, rework it. But it's really that. It's really just. It's that early stage. It's kind of the mind dump, first draft, first pass of everything, you know, and then you can grow from there. You can build from there.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I get stuck in the details. If I don't do thumbnails, I'll finish a beautiful panel that doesn't make sense with anything around it.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't want to waste my time, and so that's kind of it.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Anyone else? Arnaud? Arnaud, I've been saying your name wrong, haven't I? You're signaling. Should I unmute you? Like, what do you want me to do? Yeah? Let's see. I can't unmute you. How can I unmute you? Hold on, give me 1 second. I think I need to open up something else. Austin, it doesn't let me unmute you. What's going on? Sorry, buddy. Out of luck. Well, we're going to talk on Monday, so. Sorry, guy. Anyway, anyone else that I can actually unmute that wants to say something? Or that can unmute themselves. Anyone? Andy, you've been quiet. You want to talk?
Yeah, I'll talk. Are you going to be at Emerald City Comic Con this year?
I'm not. You know, last year it was my deciding year if I would continue it, and because I make a lot of money at shows, but they just get more and more expensive and longer. The longer they get, the more expensive it is. And last year I actually didn't make money. I had a loss, even though I sell a lot, which means it's not working out, which is why I stopped doing Comic-Con like San Diego. And, you know, because I like selling things, I like meeting the fans, but But when I have to sell like $4,000 in books in order to break even, and then it still was a really long, hard weekend, and I took a week off of work of getting anything done, just to prepare and break down and put things away. It doesn't make me want to continue doing it, you know? So that's the situation I'm in. And I've actually kind of like pulled back from all conventions right now. And I kind of wanted to wait until I got all the Sithra books done, and so I could put them all on the table and just let people get them all if they want. And by that time I'd have Phobos too, at least the first book, the first hardcover. So yeah, I want to make a video on it too about conventions, because I have a lot of thoughts on it. And it saddens me that conventions have become such a kind of a big bubble, a big money machine for certain people. And it makes it to where, like, a lot of the reason that they started, like the people who make comics and stuff, they can't justify it as much anymore, because it's shifted to a different kind of an audience, which is good. It's because there needs to be the cosplayers, and there needs to be the pop culture and the TV personalities and the B actors, and there needs to be a place for all that. But it's just kind of making it so it's harder to make it worth it. Even a really good convention like Emerald City, which was always just such an amazing convention, making a lot of money for me and all that stuff. I would break records every year, but now it's just kind of like, it just feels like a lot of the rest of them. And I'm sad because I really love Emerald City Comic Con, but it just became so much work that I couldn't justify it anymore. So much work, and I would have to basically pay to go do it.
I can imagine it's expensive to live here.
Yeah.
I'm in Seattle, but so I can only imagine it's an expensive city. With Phobos, you're doing like kind of the Universal Monsters type of thing?
Yeah.
Are they rights free?
They're based on old things, old concepts and ideas, like Frankenstein's really old concept. But Universal has a copyright on their look, and so it is in the back of my mind if they're going to ever approach me and go, nope, can't do it, but there's a lot of things that I'm not doing. Like, I'm not going to do Wolfman like their Wolfman. There's real specifics with what they allow Frankenstein to look like in their world. But it's like anyone can make their version of Frankenstein. And there's also a little bit of more that I can do, since I'm spoofing it. If you spoof things, you have a little bit more leeway. It really depends on if it gets popular, and then if they care. You know what I'm saying? Or it might be a good opportunity for them to buy the rights. If it's popular, then why wouldn't they want to, make their version of it? But I'm really trying to be careful with like the Frank character. It's like a modern day time period. So the girl references him like he's a Frankenstein looking guy, but his name is actually in the comic Benjamin Franklin, which is the name of the mad scientist's favorite inventor, and so then they call him Frank for short. So it's just kind of like, it's just enough of a like messing with it. And I don't know, there's certain things like the big eyebrows and stuff that are in their vein of what their copyright stamp is on, but I think it's enough different that I don't think it will have a problem. And when I pitched it originally, the producer, who's a big producer who was pitching it around, he didn't seem to have a problem with it. And so that helped me go, okay, probably not. But that doesn't mean that they can't jump out of the woodwork when it gets popular and want to shut me down. But if they do that, it will just be a lot of good press probably. And if I have to shut it down or change it, then, maybe I can change some of it or maybe it'll just be that thing that was released in, you can't get it anymore. You know what I'm saying? But that would be the greatest thing ever if it got so popular that Universal wanted to shut me down. That would mean I'm doing something right, because there was a big fan base that cared, and they would think, oh, he's stealing our audience. You know, maybe that'll be the thing that puts me on the map is them saying stop. I don't know. But there's a lot of, once you start reading it, you'll see that there's a lot of, I'm playing with it a lot more. I don't want to give any spoilers away just yet, but I'm playing with all the kind of classic characters, but I'm really trying to twist it, you know, like Phobos, he's this great, amazing vampire, super powerful vampire. And now he's like this pathetic half bat, half man who's sensitive to light and can't do anything, and he's weak and he's emotional because he lost his memory. And so the story is kind of about him getting his memory back and realizing who he was. And then once he does realize it, is he going to embrace who he was, or who he would rather be now? You know, it's kind of that kind of conflict, and it could go on for a long time. And, you know, so there's nothing, I don't think the vampire character could necessarily be anything that would cause any studios to be like, you're stealing our idea, because it's just too stupid. Like, no one would want to do it.
Have you ever seen What We Do in the Shadows?
No, I haven't. Is that on Netflix?
I don't know if it is or not.
I think I've seen it on net. I mean, I haven't seen it, but I think I've seen the.
Yeah, there's one of the vampires on that he loses his kind of magical abilities, so he tries to turn into a bat or to like a wolf or whatever, and every time he does it, it's always wrong. So he like turns a bat, but his head's still the same size, so he can't fly.
Yeah, that's cool. I'll have to check it out. I didn't know that's what it was about.
Yeah.
Yeah. In my next story, it's like the one I was gonna do is I guess I don't want to talk too much about it, but it's definitely a world that I don't feel like the movie industry has capitalized on yet. And it wouldn't be comedy like Phobos is, but I've considered drawing it in the same way, you know? So anyway, I shouldn't have even brought it up because I can't say anything, but I'm really excited about it when the time comes for me to work on it. Well, anyone else? Let's see. We're at 10:30 right now, but we can go on a little longer if someone else wants to talk about something. Anyone?
Jason. I've been unshunned.
Well, Jason, I wanted to tell you something real quick, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I teach junior high and high school kids art, and I've been using your cognitive drawing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they really like it. So I just wanted to let you know that.
Okay. Well, good.
I've seen really good results with it. Like,
yeah.
One of my students yesterday, he was showing me, he was doing the page with the eyes.
Yeah.
And yeah, and just the difference he noticed too. He's like, look how different it is at the bottom of the page, and how much better it is. So,
well, that's good. Yeah. That's great. It's so exciting to me that teachers are using it. Like my son's school, the art teacher there is using it as a curriculum, and they're actually sending home the sheets as homework assignments for the kids who, you know, are really trying to push their art. And it's just, I'm so excited to just see the results of how the teachers respond to it with their students. And so that's exciting to me, you know, because yeah. I don't think enough. There's a lot of stuff out there, but it's just hard to know how to use it. You know what I'm saying? Like you get an anatomy book. It's like, what do you do with this? You know? And yeah. So that's great. I'm really happy to hear that. So I'm glad you're using it. I'm glad it's working too.
Thanks.
All right, guys. Well, maybe it's time to unplug. Unless you guys, anything else? Going once? Twice?
I have another question if you can ask.
Oh, yeah. Let's go one more time.
Did I hear you right that you said you worked on Troll Hunters?
No, I didn't work on Troll Hunters. My roommate at DreamWorks was working on Troll Hunters. So I worked on around that same time, I was working on like Dino Trucks. So that was the Netflix show, and Crudes and Penguins. That was a phase when there was a lot of early development going on. Captain Underpants. I worked on the real early development of Captain Underpants, and they actually credited me. I was surprised. I just saw my name in the credits. I haven't seen the movie yet, but I was really happy that they gave me a credit. But anyway, so it's neat. That's probably the last credit I'll get in Hollywood. Until something sells, I guess. That's what my dad says. Someday something will sell and then you'll get a better credit. I'm like, okay, maybe, hopefully, that'd be neat. All right, guys, it was a pleasure. I really thank you for being patrons. This is really making my dreams come true. And I hope that the books are worth it to you as well, and the live streams and all these things. I really hope you guys like this. And I don't know what to say. It's a little detour from what I normally do, but it definitely is me. So
looking forward to it.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that book.
Cool. And I hope you guys like that. I hope you guys jump in with the hardcover too, because that's, to me, the hardcover is what is going to be the epitome of what I want it to be like, you know. But that's another day. Yeah, eventually. If I can get it done at the speed I think I can, based on what's been happening, I might do a Kickstarter early next year for the Phobos hardcover on Indiegogo. I need to do the Kickstarter for Sithra 5 and 6 just to get that done and out there. And so I'm not really sure how to do it, because I don't want to have 2 Kickstarters in a row and be like, okay, keep giving me money. But if I do it later in the year, then it really screws with taxes. So that's why I'm kind of keeping my Kickstarters early in the year, so I can spend all that money and then get money back in taxes, you know? So otherwise I have to pay a bunch of money on taxes on money that I have in the bank that I raised on Kickstarter that I'm going to spend next year. And then it causes problems. So we'll see. But that's the goal. Early next year. February or March, probably. So, well, thanks, you guys. Again, I really appreciate it. And I will talk to you next month, hopefully.
Thank you.
All right.
You're welcome.
Bye, everybody.
See you guys.
Bye.
See ya.